Welcome to the Hardwood Time Capsule podcast presented by Callaway Golf. Our platform brings you, the Hoops fan, deep inside the playing careers and personal lives of past players and coaches in Australian basketball. From World Championships to Olympics to the adversity of careers cut short, we explore it all direct with the players themselves. I'm John Casey. Here's your host, Andrew O'Brien.
G'day Hoops fans, on this episode we get a all-access pass in behind one of the NBL teams, the Illawarra Hawks, through a very well-seasoned team manager. He's a huge personality within the league, simply known as Big Joe. Enjoy this podcast, you are going to learn a hell of a lot.
Big Joe, welcome. G'day mate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, you're all right mate. I appreciate your time coming on.
Matt Campbell bossing me around.
Well, that's what he's meant to do, isn't it? That's his job. Thanks so much for coming on. We've had players on, we've had coaches on, and now what a great opportunity to have the glue guy, someone that holds the whole ship together, and something that goes on. And what better person to have than yourself? Someone that's been doing it a long time and has been mentioned by a few coaches and players on here. Obviously, everyone knows you within the NBL. Maybe outside of the NBL, perhaps not. So maybe give us a little rundown of what your current job is with Illawarra and what you've been doing in different roles over the journey. Now, I don't expect you to have to rattle it all off. For those listening to this, if you go to Joe's LinkedIn, it reads like a Harry Potter novel. That's pretty long. But,
I got someone to write that for me, just for the record.
Yeah, give us a rundown, Joe. What have you been up to in the league?
Look, I guess the short version is I started when I was in high school as the game day DJ with the Brisbane Bullets. That was my start. I did the self-proclamation of it being a star-studded role. I had the Brisbane Convention Centre put gold bollards around me and all that kind of stuff. All self-proclaimed 100%. And then from that, during that period, I was a team manager with the Southern District Spartans in it was NBL 1 now, but back then it was ABA or CBA, whatever it was called.
Yeah, right. And what sort of years are we talking there?
So that was sort of 94, 95.
Yeah, right, okay.
And then, funnily enough, Paul Mellett, who was a head coach of the Spartans, was the assistant coach of the Bullets at the time. And I guess I must have been pretty good at the team managing thing, because he asked me one day, have you ever thought of doing this professionally? And I'm like, no, I never have thought of that at all. I really enjoyed doing the game day DJing and never thought of doing this as a job. And then there were some changes at the Bullets where they were looking for a team manager. They took me on a double road trip. It was Canberra at the time, and I can't remember who the other one was. Again, I guess I did a pretty good job because I could never get rid of me after that. And then I spent a chunk of my time with Brisbane, being home. Brisbane folded, and then Joey Wright and I went to Cyprus for 6 months. And then while we were there, the Gold Coast Blaze showed some interest. They weren't going to make a change, obviously, until the end of the season, which was fine. And they were very open and honest about that. So we obviously waited. Eventually, we ended up back at the Gold Coast together. And then that ownership pulled out. And Joey obviously went to Adelaide. And then I went to Brisbane Basketball for a little bit, an association, and Basketball Queensland as a joint type role. And then I took the executive officer's role at Darwin Basketball. And then
so previous to that and getting into the admin stuff, when you were doing the team managing stuff, I guess some people would wonder, is that like a paying job? Are you doing that full time? Are you working outside of that? But before you get into the admin side of things?
As a team manager?
Yeah.
Back then, so my first year as a team manager with the Bullets, I was paid $3,000.
Yeah, wow.
$3,000 for the whole season. And it's changed a lot these days, obviously. But yeah, that was my first wage, I guess, salary. And of course, my folks were like, this isn't how is this sustainable? This is not right. You've got a uni degree and whatnot. But they knew that I loved it, obviously.
Yeah.
And then being the best parents that they are, were very, very supportive financially of me. And then, obviously got more and more as the role got on. And then with management changes, I guess they saw the time that you spend there as a team manager. I mean, you're the first on, you're the last out, and then everything that comes in between, So Narelle Kelly was the operations manager at the time at the Bullets, and then she sort of went to bat for a full-time wage. And then Eddie Groves at the time, who was the owner, obviously obliged, no problems there. And but nowadays it's very different. Nowadays, I mean, it is a full-time job. I can't speak for others, but it is for the ones that I do know are it is a full-time job nowadays for sure.
Yeah, okay. And sorry, I cut you off before, but I was just wondering if that was the position. And so then when you go to somewhere like Darwin is sort of running the whole show, sort of the CEO type role, are you then still able to team manage within your career, or that's not feasible?
No, so that stopped for me,
Yeah.
which was okay. It was the sort of the path that you take as in a career type form. And then while I was in Darwin, Guy Hedderwick, who was the CEO of the 36ers at the time, flew up on a little recruiting type flight or journey. Obviously, I knew him from the times I visited Adelaide through my friendship with Joey. And just when the time was right, I don't like to push myself onto people, but you just got to wait for the right time. So I bided my time, and when it was time for them needing an operations guy, he came up, and that was sort of my jump to sort of GM level, I guess, at that time, was going to Adelaide, where when I went there, I mean, they've got one of the OGs in team managing in Jazzy, one of the best in the business. So I didn't get involved in the team managing stuff when I was in Adelaide.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I went on a couple of road trips back to Brisbane because it was home.
Yeah.
And the grand final series, but that was pretty much it. I didn't travel when I was in Adelaide, which I didn't complain about.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so now it sort of brings us to where you are in Illawarra. If we jump a little bit further ahead, is you are essentially wearing many hats, from what I understand, at Illawarra. Yes. I think your title's technically general manager of people and I've just gone off the top of my head, but culture and one other term.
Operations,
Operations, operations. And if anyone follows, you only have to follow you on Instagram to see that how many different hats you wear, from the court duties to the pre-game stuff to managing the team to road trips to cooking their after-game meals, everything. And you start, sometimes you beat the sun up. So so you're a busy man. But yeah, give us a sort of a bit of a taste of what a regular week looks like for you if you've got, say, a home game coming up. What does your Monday to Friday look like?
So, I mean, firstly, the support around me that enables me to do what I do on Instagram is phenomenal. It always has been. And here in Illawarra, it's actually probably one of the best. And it's a no disrespect to the people in other teams that I've worked with, but the support here at the Hawks is really, really good. Our little group of our high performance manager, Alex, and our head of medical, Mutz, and myself that does the team stuff. Like the three of us are like, we got a really good connection, a really good friendship, no ego, and whoever needs to do what just gets done. So that's key in making it a fun, supportive place to be in. And so we share those things. So Alex, being high performance, he looks at the game on Saturday, let's say, and then he works backwards in consultation with the coach. And then once that's done, we got a program called Teamworks. He puts the schedule into Teamworks. And then between the three of us, we organize the food and the opening, the closing, the cleaning and whatnot. So a standard day or a standard week would be sort of 3 or 4 training sessions, a day off in between leading into the game. And for me, depending on where we are, the day stays the same. I mean, I start super early, which I love. I'm a morning person. Nobody bothers me on emails and phones and texts and whatnot. So it starts with a wash of the floor. I do find that very therapeutic. I've had a lot of people say to me, when I do the floor, you got a GM in your title. Why are you washing the floor? Like, that's my zen. It's my
Yeah.
No one's around. I do it on my own. I've had a lot of people offer to help. I'm like, no, this is me. This is me
Yeah.
time. So wash the floor, general setup, bring out all the equipment at the snake pit, and if we train at the Wynn Entertainment Centre, we've still got to bring the gear in and out because we don't have our own facility yet. It's not a big problem. It's not a big issue. It's just part of the job. So wash the floor, let it dry, bring out the equipment, set up the uniforms, the change room, just your standard team manager stuff. Get the food, food prep. By then, the players start arriving. And then, honestly, it's just banter after that. It really is. And then just any issues between the three of us, you just fix so that hopefully the coaching staff and the other players never realize there's ever been an issue. That's the goal.
Yeah, I guess sort of throwing some questions actually from people that obviously don't see the behind the scenes is some of this stuff would appear to be above and beyond in terms of the feeding of players, post training, and all of that sort of stuff. Would that be regular around all NBL clubs, or is that something you do just because you enjoy giving back and that sort of thing?
To be honest, I only hear what new recruits say when they come to us and say, "Well, we never did this at wherever they've come." You know what I mean? We would have a sponsorship with a restaurant that would come and drop it off, but it's not this home cooked, tasty type, or it certainly wouldn't be every day.
Yeah.
So it was probably in place before I got here.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just continued on. I mean, it is instrumental in team culture to have everyone come to this one location at the back of the snake pit. It's real rustic. It's like a little garage.
Yeah.
But nobody goes, like, as soon as training's finished, they'll get some shots up, they'll get changed, and they'll come into this little space. There's 2 trestle tables, 15 seats, very, very nice home-cooked meal, and they just hang about for another hour or two. There's big TV there if the NBA's on. And sometimes I'm like, fellas, go home so I can go home so I can wash your uniforms. You know what I mean?
It's a great indication of how much they love it, though.
It breeds a good space for them to hang out with, because obviously training can get heated, it can get draining, it can get tiring, but it's that space where at the end of practice it's like, all right, there's going to be some good banter in here, and then it's a really nice space to be in.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And then I guess around team managing, because we do have quite a few of our listeners. We've got a guy up in the Cairns Marlins, team manager, who shoots through some questions occasionally on the podcast. Is and many, I guess the majority that might team manage on here are probably mum and dad team managers and that sort of thing. I guess in terms of questions from that side of things is, when you're managing people, how do you, as a team manager, strike the balance between being a person of service and making sure the players and coaches have everything they need, but also having that value and respect? I've been fortunate enough to work at a WNBL club and see all those sort of things from that side of it. And you do see differences. So I'll sort of cut to the chase and you might see at an NBL 1 level, a team where players, wipe their nose with a towel or something and then throw it on the ground, or, yell at the team manager, grab me a drink bottle, or, yada, yada. And then you see others where there's a high level of respect. Now, on face value, I would assume people respect you simply because of your work ethic alone. I guess if someone sees you, how much work you put into something, then they're going to value you. So how do you create that relationship with a team where you're not just, for lack of a better term, a slave and just mothering them, to actually being part of it? Because I think in a team manager role, that's what some people struggle with, and they let themselves almost be walked over in that position. I guess, 1, have you seen that? And 2, how do you make sure that's not the case? Because it's certainly not the case with you. I mean, half the time, especially when you're with the Blazers, I thought you were the team owner. You know what I mean? Like, you had this presence behind the bench, like, where you look like you're a person of authority. Yeah. How do you manage people in that regard, and how do you build that rapport?
I mean, first things first, I think is the communication side of things. So I'll give an example. When we were in Adelaide, Justin Robinson, and I'm going to call him out on this one, came to the bench, was subbed out, and we gave him his water bottle, and he threw it, and it smashed, it smashed into a billion pieces in game. The first thing he did was turn around, Biggie, I'm so sorry. You know what? Finish the game, and we deal with it later. It's never personal. Like these guys, we as team managers or as people need to understand that it is a high pressure situation, and in a high pressure situation, we all do and act a little differently, or in things that we wouldn't normally. I mean, he was literally, when it happened, he apologized. On the way in at halftime, he was apologizing. At the end of the game, he was apologizing. We're good. We're good. I think it's really communicating is a big thing. Spending time with them as people. Joey Wright and I, when we were in Adelaide, used to every Tuesday night we would do a cook-up, and the team was invited back to our place, and we would pay for it. We would do the big cook-up at home of an evening, and you had two options. You could either come and eat with us and just hang out, or you could just walk in, bring a plate, fill it, and go. And there were some that did that. Some that did that literally came in, and there was no judging. There was no, I can't believe he's not saying, none of that. It's just, you communicate. And I also find that if you just treat people right, it's going to come back, and then you can almost say to them, look, like, I've done this. I've had to do it often, but on the odd occasion, you've got to just remind them that, you know what, I've never said no to you in this space. So if I'm asking you on this occasion to wear the right color compression, or if I'm asking you guys to do something simple, like today we're wearing black shirts on the airplane, it's not hard to just comply to those things, so I think communication's a big thing, being a good person, and also just understanding it's never personal. It's never personal. The team manager role in any team is probably the most loved human on the team.
Right.
That person genuinely is, because that person is the mother of the group. And I mean, there's not too many people that wouldn't love their mothers right now or ever. And so, it's never personal.
Yeah. And I guess
in a high pressure situation. And then the communication part is also, if you get either spoken to in a way that you don't like, you got to sort of nip that in the bud too, but there's also time and a place.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Can I have a chat with you? Look, the other day, let's use J-Rob again in that example. If he hadn't apologized, you got to be able to just pull him aside and say, look, the other day when you come in and you probably not, no, I didn't really appreciate that, and then I'll tell you right now, every single person will be like, you know what, you're 100%, didn't even think, high pressure, I'm so sorry. Well, you won't get a player that'll say, oh, F you, won't happen.
Yeah.
It won't happen.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and I think a good point for how to manage those things. Have you ever found yourself, because you are, I guess, so universally known and respected and those sort of things, when you have a coach like a Joey, who was I don't know if you've listened to the episode, but a fantastic guest on this podcast, and just
I told him I'd get more views than him, so we're trying to,
All right, we'll go for that. But obviously, and he talks about how, his passion was often misconstrued by people as anger and, going at players, but it was just because he wanted the best out of them. And it may not be Joey, it may be another coach, but have you ever had to be that middleman, because you are,
always.
Right, okay. Yeah, always. So if there's been...
that is part of the role. It should actually be in the PD as be the middleman, because there'll be players who will be more comfortable with certain people in the group. And it might not be me all the time. It could be some will feel more comfortable speaking to Alex, some will, in our group, some will feel more comfortable speaking to Mutz. But ultimately, Joey and I, obviously, because we had such a long relationship and a friendship, I mean, I could probably say this now, everything I knew from MySpace, he knew. He just found a way in which to use that info, but not in a manipulative way, I guess, you know what I mean? Like the communication from the team manager and coach relationship, in my opinion, is probably the most important one, because usually me or the massage / physio, so the medical guy, because you're on a massage table and that's when you start, talking about how you feel. So a lot of info gets told to, the team manager and also the person who looks after the massage table.
Yeah.
So again, that comes down to communication.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is great, by the way. Thanks for the insight, because literally all we see is someone handing out drink bottles and towels at a game. So to see everything that goes in behind the scenes and all the hours and all the work, I think it'll give a lot of people a much bigger appreciation and to see this side of things. Post game now, when there's meetings and those sort of things between players and coaches, and obviously you don't need to attend all of them. I don't think anyone would expect that. But is there like a team meeting between once a week or something like that between coaches, assistant coaches, team managers, that sort of thing?
Yes. So again, I can only speak for us, and also my time with Joey, because I try to emulate that. Here is we have, obviously we're together a lot, but we do have a sit down weekly meeting, the coaching, like all the staff and the support staff as one, and then there is another shorter meeting where it's GM of basketball being Matt, head coach, myself, and the CEO. Just again, a weekly where just bring everybody up to speed, any issues, any fines that come in, any problems, the good stuff as well. Great win in New Zealand. What worked, anything you want to change, anything you want to bring in. So yeah, again, it comes down to that communication, doesn't it?
Yeah, and when you talk about standards and communication and setting the whole basis for what you want your team to be about. I've read situations about where you've had players even living with you, young players come in, and I think that's great. You hear of it down here in Melbourne in the AFL all the time. Youngsters that have come in, just setting the standard, making sure they're on the right track and that sort of thing. I guess, again, you can probably only speak for yourself, but is that something that is universally done, or is it something that you're happy to put your hand up and say, look, if you want to, if we've got a couple of 19-year-olds coming in the league for the first time, I'm happy to show them professionalism. This is what we cook. This is what time we need to go to bed. This is what time we get up, that sort of thing.
I think that's probably more of a necessity these days than it was back in the day. So, I had guys like, Adam Gibson came through and lived with me for a couple of years, coming through, Jason Kadee, and prior to those guys, Lloyd Lewis, and whatnot. So it did give us an opportunity to show them some life skills. And I'm pretty proud to say that the guys that have lived with me have gone on to have really good careers and be known around the league as really good people. And it is always a nice. I'll give an example. The other day, I cooked those honey soy garlic chicken thighs for the team. That was me and Jason Kadee's thing, and he messaged me straight away. Man, I miss those. You know what I mean? So, when you get those kind of messages, it's really, really nice. I'm not sure if it's done universally. It's something when I came here. We'd sort of mentioned it, but we never really had any young guys until this current season. And I had already had a roommate by then. So, will we revisit it moving forward? My hand's always up to do it. I don't mind doing it. It's a little bit of company for me. Like I said, I do think it's a real benefit to the young kids that are coming through just to learn some life skills. Because I rarely will I get involved in basketball stuff, like anything to do with the game. I don't profess to know. I don't pretend to know. I don't try to know. I don't want to know. But for me, it's about you off the court.
It's a player welfare thing, I think. And I know I've had American imports, that I've had stay at my place during NBL 1 seasons and that sort of thing. And there are things that off the court can really affect on the court. Like an obvious one is that I've had to deal with over the time is them staying up all night, right? Because obviously different time zones and those sort of things, they want to chat to their family and they want to do that. But again, that's going to affect their time on court. So it's and
eating's a big one. Eating's a big one. With DoorDash, Uber Eats, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
easy to order, and I'm sorry that stuff's so expensive. I don't care how much money you make; it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, eating's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just life skills. Again, you finish eating. I mean, you take your plate and your fork and knife to the sink.
Yeah.
Just those little things. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I completely relate to what you're saying, and I think yeah, it's one of those things that it just sets standards and levels and those sort of things. Now, in terms of, I guess the other thing I wrote down that fans might be wondering is when you go on an away trip, you just had a fantastic win against the Breakers at the time of recording over in New Zealand. Fans might be wondering, does the club book flights? Does the league already have those flights booked? Who books the accommodation? Are there rules like you have to fly out a day before an away game so that you don't potentially get stuck where you are? All those sort of things. Can you sort of knock that on the head for us in terms of whose responsibility is it, the league or is it the team for that away stuff?
Right. So logistically, it falls on me with help and direction from the league. So once the draw gets released, most team managers, and I think I could speak on behalf of all of them in the league right now, as soon as the draw is finalized and we all get it, we jump on Qantas.com.
Right.
Right. And then we look at when our game would be, and most teams would fly the day before. It's not a rule, but rarely will teams fly on the day of the game. So you'll stay for the first night and then the game night and then go back. So we would all frantically pick the best flights, of course, to suit what each coach and respective high performance manager would like, because some want to go in the morning, some want to go mid-morning, some want to go in the afternoon, some want to go at night. So we quickly get those in. By the time we get those, the league send a template to all team managers. So this is your draw. So then we input what we just looked at from Qantas into that spreadsheet, and we send it to the league. The league then go and book it, all the flights for us.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Through an agency, and we have a dedicated account manager that's just for all 10 NBL teams. And she makes sure that we get as many exit rows as we can, all the flights. And then usually a week to 10 days prior to your trip, she'll say, "Hi, Joe, here's your itinerary for, next week's trip. Can you please look over it?" I would then check the names, the cars, and then send it back and say, "Yep, this is all cool." Or, well, we need to make a name change, or we need to, whatever. Can we redo it? And so that's the flights and the cars taken care of. The hotels are the responsibility of the home team. So if a team comes to us, we as a Illawarra Hawks have to give the visiting team 2 nights accommodation by 9 rooms, standard. So when we go to Melbourne to play United puts us up in an accommodation of their choice. There are standards. There are minimum standards, so you don't you're never in a dump of a place. And there are even to like queen beds as a minimum, for example. So things like that. So the hotels is the responsibility of the home team, and then meals are the responsibility of the team yourselves. So you have 2 options, obviously, team meals at the hotel or at a restaurant, or there's an agreed per diem amount per meal as per the APBA and the CBA, the Players Association. Excuse me. So vice versa. Our last trip to New Zealand was the first trip that we've ever been on where every single meal we per diem. A lot of things that can come into it because of that is the food at the hotel could just be bad. Timing, depending on timing, logistics of the hotel. Sometimes on a trip, we'll have 4 rental cars or we'll have a big coach. If we've got a big coach, the big coach is not there at our beck and call. So we're selective as to when we have, if everything's walking distance, we'll take a big coach and whatnot. So in New Zealand, we were in a big coach. So per diem was probably the easiest. So that takes care of the food. And then as far as any extra miscellaneous training, so obviously we went a day early to New Zealand, so we had organized training in a weights room. That's me and Alex. The uniforms, everything that we travel with, the basketballs, again, traveling these days compared to traveling when I started, it's chalk and cheese. Like back in those days, we travel with 13 people. You travel with 20 now. You would have a small bag each. Everyone's got the 2 big rolly bags each now. You'd get to the game literally 40 minutes before tip-off. Now everyone gets there 2 hours prior. You roll up in normal gear. Before, you would roll up to the game in your entire playing gear and strapped even. It's very, very different now to what it was back then. But that gives you an idea, I guess, on logistics.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else.
I do have a question on that, because I guess what we're seeing now is similar to what we see in the NBA. We see now in the NBL where the guys, the home team anyway, will walk in. The players are walking in their, whatever their latest drip is, and they've got
fits.
Yeah, and they've got a tiny bag, which clearly doesn't have their basketball shoes in, clearly doesn't have their uniform. So is all of that organised at their last training session, or how does someone make sure when they get to their locker at the stadium it's there? How does that
for games? So we'll go for training first. So today is our day. So obviously we travelled all day yesterday. So today's a day off for the players. After this, I'll go into the snake pit and I'll set up our change room with all the training gear for tomorrow. Put it in their lockers, hang them up, make it pretty, put the water out, basketballs, and set up what I can in the change room for tomorrow. At the Wynn Entertainment Centre, if it's a home game, because we're very, very lucky here where we usually get access 3 or 4 days prior, I'll set everything up in their locker room. So when they come in, they literally just need to have their accreditation and their phone.
So they've already, obviously you've got the uniforms, but you've also got shoes and things like that?
Yes. Shoes, strapping tape, everything, towel to shower in. You literally come in, dress what you're wearing, take that off, put your gear on. At the end of the game, shower, I'll provide everything, and then get back in your old clothes and get out.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal for the players. And I guess that's a good thing. They want to, American import once, what's his name? Luke Fitzgerald. He once told me, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. So 100%. I think it's.
I mean, even and all of us team managers have our little thing that, we all think we're the best at it, all of us, which is fine, and I think that is it's great to have. But we also we have a WhatsApp group where we do bounce ideas off each other. And I'll give an example. Smirchy from Melbourne. He inspired me to make our change room what it is this year. Right. Because when he travels, he's got Melbourne United corflute that he puts on top of visitors' change room sign when he's on the road to make their change room on the road feel like it's their home change room at home.
Yeah.
He's done that for quite a few years now. And every time I see it, I think, I don't think much of it. And I thought this year, you know what? And I told him that. Yeah. So when we played them first, when they came to our place second game, I brought him into our change room because I knew that he would appreciate what I did because I did it because of him. So for me now, it's my Illawarra Hawks mats. I don't know if you saw them. We roll around with them wherever we go. People think it's a little arrogant for us to put a mat in front of our door of a visiting, of our change room when we're on the road. But like you said, it makes, that's our piece of territory in a hostile environment. That's ours,
Yeah. You see in other sports, it's the norm, I guess it comes down to resources as well.
Yes.
In terms of doing all that sort of thing. But yeah, you see like in the AFL down here, if you're the away team, you go in the change rooms, you wrap the pole in your, the whole thing is completely.
And it looks amazing.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, this is my home or my space, my safe place in someone else's venue. It is. Yeah. It's very, very good. And like I said, he inspired me to do that. And then now Hayden from Perth is now making their locker room immaculate, so it does.
Yeah,
it does.
That's great. Just
off each other.
Just raises the standards of everything, know, and even with yourself personally, I guess if people, do a little Google of Big Joe, you'll see, yourself as a, back in the polo shirt and those sort of things. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Plenty of team managers still do that. But these days, you rock up in, again, if people Google you, they'll know exactly what we're talking about. Very sharp attire.
Thank you.
very sharp, and again, that just lifts the standard of I think everything, and it's a bit of fun too. It's fun
Yes,
for the
very much so.
fans. So that side of things. Now, I guess this is a good segue to go over to another part of the operations role is the court, the venue, those sort of things. So again, just thinking of some questions fans may have around that is, one would assume the decals, well, as far as the advertising are directed from the league in terms of where you can put them. You can't obviously just splash them all over the key and things like that. When it comes down to that, and again, that's something that obviously, as I've seen, you have a team do that. But I guess with your experience, just teaching them how to do it well, because you put up some great before and afters, and your court always looks super schmick.
Thank you.
Very nice. Everything from you line up the seats. You did a little Instagram story on how you have your seats lined up and all those sort of things. How much if that is directed, I guess, from perhaps above CEOs and those sort of things, and how much of it is just you just being creative and just wanting to get the best out of your court, those sort of things?
It's probably, we've had a couple of new CEOs come through over the last couple of years. So I guess it's me wanting to show them the standard of what I think it should be at. So neither of them have come and said, this is what you should do or not. A lot of them have given me the sort of freedom to sort of show us what it should look like, kind of thing. So, I mean, I believe I've always done I really have a high attention to detail with that kind of stuff. So I appreciate your words about the court, because it does. I love hearing the boys come in and say, wow, Biggie, like this is, the place is clean, and then guys from other teams who I'm close with will say the same thing. I mean, Dean Bickerman came in the other day and was like, mate, your floor's dirty, like it's a bit of a reputational thing too. And you want to maintain that standard. You want to give our guys the best venue or the best environment to do their best, to be their best. So I guess if they come in and see me do it, then they're going to do it too, hopefully. And there's no jobs. It's not an ego thing for me. There's no jobs too small. That's my zen. Like I said here,
but you need someone that's going to be passionate about it, because it's something that shows. I mean, at the end of the day, it's obviously you guys internally see it, what the club truly represents, but the actual fan really, we only see game time. So that court is going to show off, what you're all about. And so a lot of people will see how schmick and how nice the Illawarra court is and the stadium, and very few will know that it doesn't quite look like so schmick on the outside. But you would never know that because of how nice it looks. Now, in terms of decals, and those sort of things, you often have to take them up and put them back down. Is that because you guys don't own that venue and that venue is used for other things?
So for those that don't know, the decals across the league get changed every 4 games.
Right. Okay.
They'll either get changed just from wear and tear, because obviously you want the product to look first class, and they do scuff quite easily, and then after sort of 4 or 5 games they can look a bit tatty. So every 4 games there'll be a rotation. Now it'll either rotate to something new. So the last couple of years the 2 keyways would change quite regularly. Chemist Warehouse, Kmart, Bunnings would usually be the same, and then we used to have the NBL logos underneath the rings. This year they're Mitsubishi. So they'll probably stay, and then the keyways change. So last game we had at home was our Indigenous game. So we had the 2 keyways in the Indigenous, and then after that game we pulled those 2 up. And for our next home game on the 8th, we'll have Blackmore back down. And then in 3 games' time we'll change again, because it was the Indigenous game plus 3 more, and then we'll rotate again. And that's an NBL directive. They have a company in Sydney that create them. I'm not sure how they install in other places, but because we're so close to Sydney, they'll send a couple of installers down usually. So the last couple of years I've done them and helped them. This year, I'm not allowed to anymore. No one is. Like it's more of a legal thing.
Right.
So it has to be the installers now that do it. So
Right.
it's a little disappointing because I do
Yeah.
enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
But it's easier. Obviously, it does lighten my load, my
Yeah.
workload. So
Yeah.
no problems there.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, absolutely. Because you see, like down here in Melbourne, you might have a United game on the Saturday night and then a Phoenix game
yes,
Sunday, and the whole thing's ripped up and changed over
yes,
completely. So they would obviously, like you just said, have installers down here as well.
yes. So I'll give you
Yeah.
an example. We play on the 8th. Our next home game is on the 8th, which is a Friday, I think. For the first time in my life, I'm actually getting decals installed on game day, which makes me a bit nervous,
Mm,
but we'll do it. And so they're coming down at 6 in the morning,
right.
the two installers, and then they'll get it done by maybe 8:30. And then the boys will come in and shoot around at 9, quick wash, and then the boys will come in and shoot around at 9:30. So,
Yeah.
um,
Okay. Well,
yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, good for us to know
yeah,
because, some people might go, "Why are you guys talking about decals?" Well, it is an important thing, and you see now, if anyone's listening to this has been watching the playing tournament in the
yes,
NBA, the whole court is pretty much a decal
yes.
or a
It
series of
burns my
decals.
retina
Yeah, it's a bit too intense to be honest, but
a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, it's becoming bigger and bigger, and obviously those side of things. Now, in terms of pre-game, one of the questions I had for you is, and every team around the league may be different. Rowan Short, the operations manager for Southeast Phoenix, put up recently the group that puts together their pre-game stuff. So the shows, the fireworks, the acrobats, all that sort of stuff. I guess it begs the question: is that something that you hear often happens around the league, where you outsource your events or your pre-game stuff? Obviously, United do that as well because you only have to go outside the Stadium United game, and there's a whole festival going on around the stadium. But that's a whole nother subject in terms of resources and funding and things like that. But yeah, do you guys put time into doing your own pre-game, or is it outsourced?
That's such an interesting, timely one because this is the first year the Hawks have engaged an external company to do it.
Okay.
Um, I'm not going to lie, I was probably a little resistant to it because this is my 20th season. In my 20 seasons, I've just done that. Me and our internal team. However, in seeing the production and how it looks, I mean, it is a little sharper, and whatnot. It does lighten the workload
Mm.
as well, which I know is something that a lot of, thankfully, and I'm very appreciative, a lot of people are worried about with me. So, like I said, I was reluctant or hesitant at the start of the year, and I was a little vocal about it, but turned out to be it was going to be a 5-game thing to start with and just see how that works out. But look, it has worked out well. Again, a few teething problems, which is everywhere, but overall, I mean, it's probably going to be something that's going to stick. I think I can't really speak for Cairns or New Zealand, but in playing them recently, the last 2 road trips, normally I would get event requests and stuff from their operations people, but it had come from events people. So I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure, but it would look to me, I would think that Kansas outsourcing also, as would be New Zealand, which I think would also be quite new for them. Yeah, so like you said, the 2 Melbourne teams do it, Sydney do it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's probably the way to go now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it certainly um, has improved in general. I mean, as you said, everyone's going to be different. You might have a club might have someone like yourself that's so passionate about it, they put a lot of time into it. And then you might have previously, before you had events teams, you might have had someone that really it wasn't their thing and it was just kind of do what we've got to do to get by. So no, I think it just raises the professionalism of everything and gets the kids in as well. A lot of it's about that. In terms of building the league and just going from strength to strength, because you're someone that's been through it all. You saw that. You had those sort of, lack of a better term, glory days in the late '90s, early 2000s, and then the league was, I think you were sort
Trouble.
of, yeah, in trouble when you're in that sort of Gold Coast Blaze sort of era, and you've been there with, like a Chris Golding. You've seen him right from, the early
Those
days.
Thursday nights at Carina Basketball Stadium and local Brisbane competition.
Yeah, to what he just did on Sunday, and it's just to see something, to have lived the career that you've lived, I think is phenomenal. So I really appreciate you sharing
Oh, thank you.
this side of things. I guess what's next is one massive question. Obviously, I don't expect you to say you're leaving Illawarra or anything, but do you have aspirations to where, I forget his name, but you've tagged him, a good friend of yours that's been doing some work in the NBA, I think, team managing.
Junior.
Yeah, and done the
Yep.
Boomer stuff. Is that something, you aspire to go internationally? Obviously, you did team manage, you mentioned before, in Cyprus for a short period. Is that something you'd like to do?
I did probably 5 or so years ago.
Hmm.
And then I think as you get older, I mean, the first thing for me at the time was to address my weight problem.
Oh,
So
congrats on that, by the way. That was
thank you.
unbelievable.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So yeah, so I had to address that first. And then I had a taste of the NBA side of things working at the NBA Summer League
Yeah,
for three
right.
years. So that was as an intern. So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. And then I haven't really thought about it because I mean I'm very comfortable. I'm very, very lucky. I really, really enjoy what I do and I love what I do,
Yeah.
whether it's here or Gold Coast or Adelaide or wherever. Um, and yeah, maybe this is my journey,
Mm,
and I'm more than happy with that.
mm,
I'm not looking,
mm.
if something comes up, great. I mean, a lot of the between Adelaide and Illawarra or Wollongong, I did a bit of contracting for the league
Yeah.
when the Blitz was in Tasmania, and my job then was just to facilitate any NBA person that came into the country, whether it was a
Right.
scout, a GM, an executive. So obviously, I'm again very, very blessed and lucky to have met a lot of them, and they've sort of, is there any interest in coming on over and whatnot? And like I said, if it happens, great, but I probably wouldn't say I'm actively looking for that
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
I only ask because obviously that's what we ask the players and the coaches when they're
Hmm.
on. But I did see, you do have the operation of some consultancy work
Mm-hmm.
that you're open to as well. Because the reality is, um, like anyone that's been in any industry for a long time, you've got knowledge, you've got advice. You could take someone who's coming into a situation where they're creating a team. It doesn't even need to be basketball. It could be business, could be any industry. How do you build teams? How do you create successful teams? How do you negotiate confrontations in the workplace? Those sort of things. You could I guess the line of thinking I was having coming into this was, the more I looked at what you did, I was like, he must really love what he does, because to be honest, he could probably just make a full-time living doing consultancy work um, for himself and not have to get up at 5 a.m. and come in and run the stadium. So you must really love what you do, because I think it's something, and the CEO of Illawarra, if he ever listens to this, will probably kill me, because he's like, don't tell him he can go do other stuff. But the reality is, yeah, you've got this wealth of knowledge. So I think that consultancy space,
Mm.
is that something you enjoy and you would be open to doing?
Yeah, yeah. So I started a consulting type business during COVID. A lot of people did. And then because again, you kind of think, you couldn't get out anywhere, you couldn't do anything when COVID was quite rampant. So I've just kept that going. Um, and I did a fair bit of it at Brisbane with some of the local associations there throughout, just to help out with like NBL one and one, just on a sort of monthly retainer. I really did enjoy that. And then again, this opportunity came by. So
Yeah, because
um,
it's something that I think is for instance, we've got Mark Cowan coming on the podcast in on the 7th of December. The owner and creator of the South Dragons that were around for a couple of years. So when I think of that, I think of if he's going to organise a team, well, who do I go to make sure the operations side of it's done? Let's not go through trial and error and just try and figure it out on our own. Let's get someone that's tried and true and has done it. And obviously the league with the expanding and those sort of things, not to say you would go from another team, but you could just offer that consultancy and that sort of thing. And I think when you look at like a Rowan Short that's at Southeast Phoenix that I mentioned before, he's coached in the league, been around Townsville and different teams. The more knowledge you have, same as Steve Woodbury that we had on the podcast, he wants to get into coaching over here, but just his consultancy and those sort of things. And you could see Joey would be another, just want to pick his brain. And I think it was no surprise to anyone, especially given your connection, not to say that you were the reason they went after him, but you see that Joey was approached immediately for the Illawarra job, and it was all over the newspapers. Just to have someone that's tried and true and those sort of things. But I'll keep this moving on. And the other question I had is, I guess it's one thing to be busy as a team manager during the season, and this is obviously a job for you. But is it a job off season, or do you have to go get work elsewhere?
No, it's an all round, all year round, non-stop. During the 8 months of the season, it's 24/7. I'll be honest with you. I mean, some of the phone calls, some of the requests, some of the things that come my way, I guess, from the players mostly. I make myself available 8 months of the year, 24/7. And then the other 4 months, I just kind of say, just let me be. So I won't abuse the system. But if, for example, I just want to leave at 12 o'clock so I can go get a haircut, go to the bank, get some groceries and go run some errands. I mean, I want to be able to have that freedom to do that without going, oh, why is Big Joe not in the office?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've kind of molded that to be like that if I'm in that team manager space. It was different in Adelaide again because I didn't have that space. But during the off season, I mean, I'll give you an example. We're already planning uniforms and training gear for next season now.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So that came through literally late last week.
Yeah.
The first round of designs from the NBL. So, during the off season, that kind of stuff happens. Sending players home when the season ends, wherever that may be. It could be in their March at the end of a grand final season, or it could be February with no finals. But you got to send them home. Then you got to wind down their housing. You send their cars back, check everything. And that can, be a 5 to 6 week thing.
This is all the stuff we don't think about when we see the league. Yeah,
correct. You just see players go home. All right, see you later, and that's it.
Yeah, who's looking after their house now? Yeah,
how can they go? Yeah. I mean, I get their keys to the house and the car. Then I've got to go to their place, clean it. And again, for me, I know this sounds stupid, but I actually don't mind cleaning. Like it's you know what I mean? Like again, me going into a player's unit to clean it, there's no problem. It's not beneath me. I'm not, it saves a bit of money. So that's the other thing. But at least then I know it's done. And then you got to do that by 5 players. It takes time, And then if it's a furnished unit, you got to take everything out, pull everything apart, put it in the storage. So it's, that can go on for, like I said, 5 to 6 weeks. And then I normally try and get away for about a week or so as soon as that's done. And then when you come back, again, uniforms, you're right back into it. The designs, yeah.
What do you like when you go away? Do you struggle?
Yeah.
Like a lot of workaholics really struggle when they take time.
I've never, you know what? I'm talking right now at the moment about going on a cruise. I've never been on a cruise in my life.
Yeah, right.
But I could literally sit on the balcony of this big, big boat. And as long as I've got my laptop there and some Wi-Fi, I mean, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And then the month of July, obviously, I'm in Vegas for Summer League. So that
do you go every year to that?
Yeah. So I stopped. I had my 3-year when I was working there, and then I stopped for my weight loss surgery, and then my excess skin surgery, and then COVID COVID, and then I went back last year. So
So now you go back as a fan,
so last year I went back working, but then
right?
I had my a fair bit of my Illawarra Hawks hat on, and they're so relaxed. Like my direct report, who I report to, is there's I guess that's the difference between the NBA and anywhere else is the resourcing, and the funding is it's on another level. It is on another level. So, it was never, where are you? You've got to be here. I spent a fair bit of time there behind the scenes, downstairs and whatnot. But yeah, it was a little bit difficult this year because I was batting for both teams.
Yeah.
Next year, it might be a bit more back to summer league side. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, it's a great job. Plenty of perks in it. I guess the work is enormous. But yeah, to be around something that you love so much and be a person of service, I think that's the main thing. If one of your values, which clearly one of your biggest values is being a person of service, and then leaving a legacy as well, leaving an imprint, I think is something that's huge and you'll no doubt get a lot out of. I mean, you only have to look at how often you're mentioned by players that you probably haven't seen for a hell of a long time.
It is very nice. I mean, that's reward enough for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you get that text message that you haven't heard from for a long time, and a good example of that is Mark Worthington.
Yeah, right.
We could go 12 months without speaking, and then we always used to joke, and this is going to be funny. We always joke about the Perth Wildcats theme song. Like, even though we don't like Perth, we actually like the theme song.
Oh, okay.
So he would, every time Perth would win or something, or if he'd be at the game or something, like he'd ring me with it in the background, and that's enough. You know what I mean? Like, when your former players catch up with you. When we were in Melbourne last game, the United did the tribute to the championship team, which was my era.
Tigers. Yeah.
Yes, and to see those, Dave Simmons, I had him in Brisbane for a little while, right? And then he hadn't seen me since my weight loss, like in person. He didn't recognize me. Walked straight past me. I said, "What's up, Simo?" And he's like, "Hey." And then he was like, and he's like, literally, like genuine, like, Big Joe. And then Sibs was there, who obviously I had in Brisbane, and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's Big Joe, right?" And like he was nearly in tears.
Yeah.
Like it was really, really, like it was just that stuff what makes it nice. Cortez Groves came to our training here.
Yeah.
Last Friday or just before we went on the road for the first time. And same thing. He also hadn't seen me in person since, and he was speechless.
Yeah.
But just to hear from those guys, it's nice. It's really, really, because we're all getting older. We're all getting a little bit chubbier,
Yeah.
a little bit more unfit. But that was my era.
Well,
you know
you're
what I
doing
mean?
the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
it's
just something I picked up on because it's I think, who was it first saw? I mean, I remember you from back at the cage, the Tigers versus the Blaze and those sort of things. But seeing someone like Annalee Maley was posting about you, and saying, "Oh, how great it was you caught up like a couple of years ago," or something. Like just things like that. People don't do that. Like they don't generally post up about a team manager from another team. Not to say that that's the only way you know people, but you know what I mean.
I do. It's really, really nice. It's really, really nice. I mean, I always did junior stuff as well. Whenever I was in Brisbane, did state teams and that, because you can touch those younger hearts as well. And then they're a bit like, well, we've got like a celebrity team manager here. I mean, I don't see myself as that, but to an under 18 local club association team, they think that,
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the respect is there then. So when guys, I need you to do this way, they'll do it. It is very rewarding.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think you could almost doing things like that. And the reason I'm harping on this point is I think it's also an investment as well. Not that you would ever, purposely just put on an act. You're obviously a genuinely caring, passionate person. But then, who knows where that leads in the future, in terms of not just opportunities for you, but, a Wortho or an Annalee Maley or a Robert Sibley or someone goes, my nephew's best mate, is looking at, he's probably going to play pro. Big Joe's over at Illawarra, he'll look after you,
Yeah.
all those sort of things, it all pays off. But look, thanks so much for the chat today, man. I know I've taken up a whole hour of your time, and I only said I'd take you up 40 minutes, but it's been really good. I've learned a lot. The listeners are going to learn a lot.
Thank you.
Because as I said, we turn on the TV at 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon to watch the games, and are pretty much naive to everything else that's gone on. And even getting this podcast together, you had complications at the airport, getting over there and flights changing, and all these stresses. And you said you got 20 people that go on a road trip now, and you're one of them, and the other 19 are probably looking at you when something goes wrong, going, Joe, fix it. We're stuck, So to just appreciate that all this goes on behind the scenes has been fantastic. And really appreciate it. And we might have you on again at some time. We should probably do one, I reckon, where we have like a reunion type thing, where we have like yourself, Gibbo, Joey, and we have everyone on the call, and we can.
That'll be all. It'd be funny. I'll tell you that. It'll be funny.
And that can just be stories and hanging shit on people.
We do that very well.
Yeah, I bet. Thanks again, mate. And I'll let you get on with the rest of your day.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks again.
Thanks, Joe. Take care, mate.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe for all future episodes, and we'll see you next time.